Hi, Josie. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. This is looking fantastic. Nice kerning. Good job. Good letter spacing here. I'll talk about letter spacing here in 1 second, but good, really good kerning here. Nice job. Color palette's very, very interesting. A couple of comments on the front cover. I know we're concentrating on the back cover, but let's talk about the front cover real quick. Interesting combinations here. This line that's kind of defining the guitar, I would get rid of it completely. We'll get it, and plus it'll be a lot more fascinating allowing the letters to define the shape of the guitar than actually filling in the blanks with that little contour line there. I would definitely, most definitely remove that and allow the viewer to fill that in himself, and that will give the viewer a little bit of satisfaction too, because, you know, as viewers, we like to figure things out. So we like to go, oh yeah, that's a guitar shape, without expressly being told that that's a guitar shape. Do you see what I'm saying? Hope that makes sense. Love the overlap right there. That's really, really unique. Very compelling. Love it. As I said, good letter spacing all the way through here. Good relationships, nice page mechanics. Like a Rolling Stone is the word spacing and stuff. I think the letter spacing is fine. In other words, the kerning is fine, but the space between words is really, really super tight. So let's get a space in between the words, in between like and a, in between a and rolling, and of course in between rolling and stone, and that will start to look a little bit more like at a distance. That's going to end up looking. It's going to get a little distorted because there's just no real word spacing involved. Okay. The only other comment regarding the front of the poster is this red is a little bit, I think it's a little bit vibrant for the rest of the color palette. And the reason I say that is because your hierarchy should lie right up here. And it does, but right now, this is stealing hierarchy based on the fact that it is set in bright red. I would mute that a little bit. You know, maybe a wine color, something a little bit more of an earth tone as we get these earth tones here. The blue background is great. Of course, that's not an earth tone, but we have the kind of tan background, the browns and Dylan and the blacks. So they got some wonderful use of earth tones there, but this is a little bit vibrant, too saturated. So I would definitely revisit that relationship right there. Nobel Prize in Literature. And then the back of the poster. This looks good. Good letter spacing, good kerning there. Image looks good. A couple of comments regarding typography, and then we'll talk about the timeline. But first, let me just mention something about layout. Okay, one little trick in layout is this: see that image? You should strive to make your text box the same size as that image. It's going to be really harmonious. It's going to create a lot of visual harmony between the image and the actual type itself. So if you were to take that image and just, make it the size of the text box, so in other words, from the first line to the last line, and then square it like that, that will, of course, create the situation where the B is sticking above. So instead of this B, do a drop cap, which means that the B is actually dropping into the paragraph as opposed to above the first line of type. Do you see what I'm saying? So that the B would be a large cap, and it would be down in there. Okay, and you can sync that 1, 2, 3, as many lines as you want. Okay, now at this point, I can't really zoom in. I can zoom in on my system, but you're not really going to see it. There's no PDF here, so I can't really get down and dirty and really get close as I'd like to. So I'm going to zoom in with my system zoom, but I don't think you're going to see. You're not going to see this in the video. Okay. Right now you've got a serif typeface, and I think that your kerning, or actually I should say your tracking, is pretty tight here. If you've got a serif typeface, I would loosen the tracking there a little bit. That typographic color is a little bit dark, a little bit dense. In your numerals, try to use old style numerals. Really a great practice to use old style numerals. So I really, really want you to employ that here. It's as simple as going into your open type palette in your character palette and looking to see if there's open type involved. Either that or just Google open type numerals. I'm sorry, old style numerals in whatever typeface this is that you're using, and it should show you how to access that open type menu to see if indeed old style numerals are available in this typeface. Okay, rags. Watch your rags. You get these patterns here. You see that kind of wave right there? That's a problem. And then that little diagonal right there, that's a little problematic too. And I'll have to zoom back out to show you an example of rags. Let me see, here's my example right here. This is what good rags look like. You've got alternating long line, short line, but not to the point where it's noticeable. You don't want this like noticeable zigzag. But see how that's just nice and clean, really consistent, as opposed to long lines and then really short lines and long lines, or any diagonals like this, or any kind of wavy patterns like this. Okay, you just want to kind of go like this. Okay, so you'll want to adjust your rags. There's a wavy pattern. There's this kind of diagonal here. Okay, and again, zooming into the type, this is apparently it's a pull quote, but the problem with the pull quote is that it's just set in bold. So what a really neat trick to do with this pull quote here is reduce the size of the width of the type box associated with that pull quote, so that it comes in like this, and it doesn't adhere to the margins of the body copy. Now, further reinforce that it is not part of the text per se, but rather it's an interesting way to have a break in the text. Academy Awards, Grammar Awards, those are proper names. Actually, they're descriptive names, but you can go ahead and italicize those instead of just capitalizing them. Italicize them or use all caps, and that would be a really interesting way to go. And then Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well. Yeah, okay. All right, old style numerals. Okay, let's talk about the timeline. Okay, the timeline. Now, I think that the timeline's it's working. I think it's really interesting, very compelling. Now, one thing I would recommend in a timeline is this. Now, you have one of two choices to make. So I would like you to get a connection between the guitar and this part of the guitar. So the only way we can do that, since that part of the guitar is not shown in the typographic illustration of the guitar, the only thing we can really do is color. So I think if we were to create black here, it might be a little bit too dense, a little bit too visually heavy, drawing too much attention right to that area. So what I would recommend is maybe even changing the color of that to a really dark brown or some other sort of color that would work here without drawing so much attention to it. Okay, think about that. The next thing on the timeline is this. So it's a good idea, right? So you're bringing the idea of the timeline, but I think we can push this even further. I'm going to make this recommendation. Old style numerals on your years, but instead of just placing the type in these kind of white rectangular boxes, let's go ahead and just duplicate that circle, same color and everything, which means you might have to change the color of the guitar strings, but duplicate that and use it for the timeline entry. Now, it's going to entail placing type in a circle, which is always really difficult. So I would recommend there just really experimenting, see what looks best, center alignment, left alignment, justified, see what looks best. I think a justified might work in that particular case. So basically what you would have is a circle with a square inside of type. Okay, and that's really, really going to draw some pretty intense connections from the front of the poster to the back of the poster. My only other comment is that I think that since we have this red in the front of the poster, I'd like to see the red somewhere in the back of the poster. I'm going to leave that part up to you. But I think it would be, again, a really nice way of continuation and creating visual harmony based on, the front and the back of the poster, if you were to include that little splash of red somewhere in here. I don't know if you underline something or whatever you want to do, but try to figure that out. All right, other than that, this is coming along beautifully, showing really good propensity to use the type rules that we've been learning, but there's a couple of other areas, as I mentioned earlier, I think would be really super appropriate for you to apply to this particular instance. Okay, specifically referring to old style numerals, all caps or small cap versus small caps, italics and rags. And then, of course, you want to watch your kerning and tracking. All right, good job. Any questions at all, please let me know. Thank you.